Hello, podcast lover. This is your host with the most, JJ from JJ Meets World. We're going to talk a little bit about AI. I've got a story about a citizen's arrest. And of course, Tucker almost got hit by a fire truck. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
When you get food to go from a place, oftentimes they don't include the free bread that they would give you on the table at a restaurant, right? And that's totally legit. I understand that. But when you get to go food from America's favorite Italian joint, Olive Garden, they include breadsticks.
Good on them.
Right, as they should.
Yep.
And they come in special bags that have reflected heat, and like it's not just a paper bag. Like you can feel like this thing is meant to keep the heat inside the breadstick. It probably gets sweaty in there, garlic sweaty,
Nice.
right?
The garlic sweats.
The garlic sweats. So recently I got Olive Garden to go, and the next day Jill decided she wanted to warm up her leftovers and she was going to eat them with 2 breadsticks that were also left over. She got the breadsticks out. I don't refrigerate the breadsticks. I didn't, turn the oven on ultra low and put them in there to keep them warm until we needed them. They were just out on the counter, but in their special bag.
Okay.
In their special bag. She takes 2 breadsticks out, and she did something that I consider to be an insane person's activity. And she took butter and smeared butter all over the top of the breadsticks before she put them into the microwave to warm them up just a little bit. And I said, "What are you doing? These breadsticks are fine the way they are. You don't need to put butter on them. What are you? I've never seen somebody sit down at an Olive Garden be like, could we get some more breadsticks and could we get a side of butter?"
What she's doing does not bother me whatsoever, because I'm talking to a man right now who is very particular about the amount and placement of his popcorn butter, right?
Yeah.
And so she's basically saying
0 is what I say.
She's saying, no, I thought you put it in the middle of it all the time.
Nope. I haven't had butter since I worked at the Fargo Theater.
Oh, it's been that long?
Yeah.
Are you just salting it?
Because
then?
I salted halfway through. Yeah.
Oh, that's what you're doing halfway through now.
By the way, also, we've got to get into a world where we stop calling that butter.
That is true.
I mean, could I have some imitation butter oil on my
which
popcorn?
is coconut oil, I think. At least it was when we were there.
It depends on where you are,
That's
right?
True. That's true.
Because I remember Margie Bailey at the Fargo Theater telling us, like, well, we use white coconut oil because when have you ever seen a yellow coconut? And be like, right. But it's supposed to make it more appealing visually when you look at the popcorn and you got a yellow tinge to it.
Yeah, and you never show people the sword and the stone underneath it, where you've got the big metal heating wand that melts it, and then just sort of it recongeals on it that night, and then remelts, and then recongeals, and you're just doing that over and over and over again.
It's a 5-gallon drum that you get, and it's a solid when you get it. The coconut oil is solidified, and it does.
Looks like an opaque, really solid gel, or almost like if you've ever like when cooking and then you separate some of like the fat in a tub and then you put it in the fridge.
Yeah,
it comes out looking like that.
But imagine it's about 2.5 feet long.
Looks like a thing of Crisco almost.
Yeah,
basically.
but it's hard.
Yeah.
So here's what I always think was one of the more interesting things about working at a movie theater is you pull off the lid, and it's not like you can instantaneously start using it. You have to, as Tucker said, you get this sword. It looks just like a sword.
It's like Qui-Gon. It's like Qui-Gon in episode 1 when he's trying to get through.
Yeah, and he's melting the middle.
Door.
We surely will not survive. And you have to, the sword goes in, but you can't immediately go in. So you kind of have to like hold it there and like force it in. Finally, it sits there, and then it warms the rest of the drum, which is a metal drum, and that's how you get popcorn oil. And the thing is that how many times were you at a big event where you ran out of popcorn oil and then it's not instantaneous? Nope. I mean, we're talking about a 15-minute deal before you can start pumping it out of this drum. And you know what I always thought was silly is they should have put some kind of like a clear piece on the side of the drum so you could see where the level is at as it goes down. Or you put it on some kind, like in my grill, you hook the propane tank up and it holds down a weight measure. And so it'll tell me like, oh, this is a full tank because it's weighing me down. And as it gets less and less and less. So you melt that, you finally get it in, and then the pump takes it up. And then it's another like 4 minutes until a fresh batch of popcorn. So you could have 20 minutes where you're not making any popcorn, and you've got people who are freaking out because they can't get their popcorn right before a meal or right before a movie. Excuse me. I recently went to a movie at the good old Fargo Theater, and I like to sit in the back because I don't like attention drawn upon me when I go to social situations. I've hit that level of local celebrity.
Hey, I never even had to become a local celebrity to reach that.
It's just, and like,
oh, I see. You're so locally famous that too many people are going to ask for your autograph.
Not even an autograph.
When you go out.
It's more that and listen, I love chatting with people, but I don't like this one got embarrassing because afterwards I didn't get up right away. I was trying to watch the credits. Sometimes you get a great credit sequence, like this movie we watched In and Out, which, as you know, like was not a great movie for me to combat the idea that maybe I was gay growing up. I believe it's like, look at that tie was my quote, right? Like, I love that tie. Tom Selleck, and I noticed it again. Tom Selleck wears great ties in the movie In and Out. But the end is a big dance sequence to the Village People's Macho Man. It includes like a conga line and all these like fun. There's the little old ladies doing like a kind of like a tap dance with their walkers, and it's great. But they turn the lights on and everyone's leaving, and I'm like, you're missing Bob Newhart, America's treasure, Bob Newhart, doing some funny stuff here. Stay in your seats, everybody. Also, it was really like an interesting. Do you ever watch a movie and you see people who become ultra famous, but at that point they were doing maybe a bit part or they're just in the background somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I was get a kick out of that.
Who did you see then?
So Lauren Ambrose was in this, and it was obviously before she hit it big with 6 Feet Under. And so seeing her kind of in these background roles, like getting 1 or 2 lines total. There are some other people, I wish I should have written it down, who are like part of the track team.
I'm trying to remember who it is that plays his student that outs him in the Oscars.
It's Matt Dillon.
It is Matt Dillon. Okay. For some reason in my head, it's Sugar Ray.
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, it's Sugar Ray.
I mean, here's the thing. He looks exactly like him. He's got the frosted blonde tips, the goatee.
That's got to be the reason then why, because I picture, like when I play that scene in my head, I picture it's Sugar Ray the entire time.
Ernie Sabella is in it, who is the voice of Pumbaa, and he plays this like barber in the movie, and he has a fight with Kevin Kline about whether or not Yentl sucks, the movie with Barbra Streisand. And it was just really also every now and then you have to come to grips with the fact that there are people who just were amazing comedic actors that people didn't give enough credit to during their career. Debbie Reynolds, no one's going to argue that Debbie Reynolds isn't amazing, right? Because she really is. But in this movie, the looks that she gives, the reaction she has to things are amazing. There's a sequence where she's telling Kevin Kline that she'll love him no matter what, and it's no big deal. And she goes, but I need that wedding. And she like, and her expression is like, we'll love you, Kev, we'll love you no matter what, Howard, and blah, 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 blah. but I need that wedding. I need cake. I need dancing. Like, it's like, and she goes, it's like heroin. And this is perfect. And she and Wilford Brimley play so well off of each other.
I still need to sit down and watch Mother from start to.
Good news. I'm screening it at the Fargo Theater on, if you're listening to this, on May 8th.
Oh, I will not be in town.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
You're going to miss it.
I will be on my way back from Arkansas.
Mother, one of the best comedies of all time. And it's my Mother's Day go-to. Albert Brooks, Debbie Reynolds. I mean, that is the one where it proves she knows what timing is. I mean, she's such a great actress.
That's a lot of cheese. Of course.
Did you ever
Albert
watch
Brooks.
the documentary about it was Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds, and it was like it was heartbreaking because it came out maybe like a couple weeks after Carrie Fisher died, and then Debbie Reynolds died shortly after that. But it was about this kind of like relationship that they share where they live next door to each other. And, you know, she helps her mom find cell phone chargers. And like, she's like, you got to stop having all of these, all of these costumes. You can't keep buying costumes, Mom. And she's getting ready for the new Star Wars Force Awakens.
Wouldn't it have been crazy just to have been in the room with them? I mean, that's royalty right there. Right? That is absolute Hollywood royalty right there. That would be historic. Hey, I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you work at KFGO?
Yeah.
News radio.
Yeah.
So do you guys use things like, do you guys still use things like police scanners and stuff when like you're trying to find out, hey, what's going on? There's this big thing going on or whatever.
We monitor, I believe, 2 different types of scanners, but a lot of law enforcement in the area has recently gone to a digital like scrambled scanner. So you can't monitor it anymore.
Got it.
Which I understand. But at the same time, I'm sort of like, well, you know, I mean, because there are a lot of people, like I knew a lot of people growing up who had police scanners for whatever reason. And so we do listen to that. I think that every now and then you get something from the fire department doesn't use a scrambled scanner. Certainly, I've heard this a lot too, which is nowadays they'll do something to get a hold of someone and they say like, please call me on my cell. And so clearly they're taking these out of like anywhere where anyone can monitor those things.
Yeah. Except for anyone else who's on that channel with them, you know, or whatever.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so we do. Why?
I memory growing up. So my Uncle Paul, who's been on the show before, Uncle Baseball. I forget what episode number, but you can find him when you go to our website and search Uncle Baseball. But he worked at WDAY radio. And so I remember one time being it was either his car or it was a company vehicle that had a police scanner in it. And I just remember thinking, this is the coolest thing. And I always go back to that memory whenever I see like a crazy amount of emergency vehicles. And I saw that today on the way here to the studio.
Oh my.
It was actually nuts. I had to hit the brakes hard because me and everyone else on university, because 2 fire trucks came careening out of nowhere, full blast. It was like they weren't there and then they were there and they just cut across the street. So we all almost hit them. And then, we're then like at this light and for almost 5 minutes, I'm hearing every siren, and everyone on the street is like looking around like, what the hell is going on? So when it's that level, I'm always like, God, what's going on? But at the same time, more than likely that'll be in the paper the next day, right? If it's a house caught on fire or there was a crazy event that happened over here or something. But it sounded like they called out everybody. Yeah. It was wild.
And you never know when there's because it could be something where they needed an ambulance, or it could be something where they needed the police, but a 911 call sends everybody because you just don't know.
Yep.
Have I ever told you about the time I made a citizen's arrest?
Was that when your van got broken into or your car got broken? Yeah, you talked about it in the podcast before.
I'll go through it real quick. So I was in Minneapolis and I was making a short film with Jared, and we were having a party the night before, and I'm dressed up as a crossing guard. So reflective vest and then these big galoshes. Jake Harchie is dressed up like...
I like how you're in your costume the night before.
Well, yeah, because we're trying on our costumes and getting ready, and because we're going to do some rehearsals and stuff like that. And we're shooting it on actual film. So, you didn't have the chance to do let's do 5 takes or let's tweak this thing. And so Jake Harchie was there, and he was wearing the outfit of like a nerd, but who was also becoming a wizard in real life. And then everyone else. And so we're having a party. And to be honest, most people are very inebriated at this point. And Jared lived on Emerson Avenue, which is just one block off of Hennepin. Yeah, one block off of Hennepin in uptown Minneapolis. And you could see Hennepin through a parking lot that was right across the street from his second floor apartment. And there was a Domino's Pizza there. And we used to always park in the Domino's Pizza parking lot, right? They hardly ever ticketed us because we'd go in and get a pizza and be like, hey, we're going to leave our car here for the weekend. And most of the guys were like, cool, man, no worries. So someone was like, hey, JJ, there's someone in your car. And so I went over to the window and I'm looking and I'm like, you're drunk. You're crazy. And so we go back to partying, and then someone else comes up and they're like, yeah, there's definitely someone in their car. So we go over and we look, and I can see someone moving around the back seat of the car. And I'm like, what? So we all run out. There's a party of like 40 people, and we all run out.
Holy shit.
And we get to the front door, and this guy sees that we clearly are coming. And so he gets out of the car and he runs across Hennepin. He almost gets hit by a car. And then you think about
and
this.
Then 40
and
drunk
then 40 other people.
Like just,
yeah. So like, you're like, whoa, that was close. I almost hit that guy in this long coat. And then all of a sudden you almost hit 40, young kids as they're running, right? And again, most of us are in costumes for this short film. So he gets in behind a grocery store called Kowalski's and kind of disappears in the neighborhood. And Jared yells to the group, scatter. And so we all like start going in different directions, and like something out of a movie, there's a street light, because it's the middle of the night. There's a street light, and I see this guy, and he's notable because he's wearing a long, like an ankle length blue puffy coat. And so I see him, and so I start walking up, and I go, hey. I'm like, you broke into my car. And he goes, not me. And Jared somehow comes out from around the corner and he goes like, hey, you broke in that car. And then the guy is just like, it wasn't me. Jake Harchie shows up, and Jake's like, you guys, like, we got to give this guy the benefit of the doubt. Like, what if he's not lying? And I'm like, well, we'll let the police decide. And when I say that, this guy takes off running, right? Like immediately. And so I turned to Jake and I was like, see, that's our man. And Jared takes off running after him. And Jared, I think Jared probably has like a wrench in his hand. No, Travis Smith had a wrench in his hand. I think Jared maybe had like the bottle to a blender or something like that. I mean, it was a bizarre like thing. So he drops whatever he was carrying, takes off, and this guy's running, and he's fast, and he tries to jump a fence, and he's going to do it, except for he hits the area of the fence. It's the fence door. It's not locked. It swings open, hits the side of a wall like of this building, and he immediately falls off, right? So he just hit the fence at the wrong part, at the gate. And so Jared picks him up, and I finally get over there. I'm going and we pick him up like in each arm, and we're like, we'll walk him over to the gas station. We'll call the cops from there, because none of us have a cell phone at this point. Mm-hmm. And Jake's going like, man, why'd you run? Like, come on. I was trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. So we get there, and I'm like, Jake, we saw this guy, and this is a very distinct coat, like very distinct. And so then we get to the gas station. It's closed. So then we walk to another gas station, and an old woman named Fern ran this Super America that was near Jared's house. And we walk in, and he goes, Fern, call the cops. We caught a carjacker. And so we're holding him in custody, in citizen's arrest custody, while we're waiting for the cops to arrive. The cops finally arrive, and I said, well, listen, I should go. One of the cops, I was like, we should go back and see what he took from the car or what he did. And that night there's this awesome restaurant like in this little strip mall near Jared's called Figlio. And I had this amazing dinner and I only ate half of it. And so that was in the back seat of the car and it was covered now in glass. And like even in the box.
I thought that was going to be the thing he had taken.
Oh,
it's like a hungry guy.
No, I wish. And so I was like, my sister had like an iPod mini in there and it was my mom's car. I had borrowed my mom's car to drive to the cities. It was a white Bravada. And so he had broken the back, like the kind of the design window, not the main window, but like the little like, triangle shaped window and then used that to unlock the car and got in. So the cop's like, well, what's missing? What's missing? I said, we're only missing an iPod. That's it. So when we get back, they asked the guy to turn out his pockets and sure enough, there's an iPod and he goes, that's mine. And so I said, I bet you the very first song when you turn up this is Toby Keith's I Love This Bar because we had been listening to it on the way back. They turn it on. Sure enough, Toby Keith, I Love This Bar. It also says like Chrissy Sue's iPod. And so they're like, all right, here's the deal.
I'm Chrissy Sue.
Right. And now, meanwhile, it's bar closed and there's tons of people from that neighborhood coming in to like, get hot dogs and drinks and stuff like that. And every time someone comes in, Jared's like, watch out for this guy. He's a thief. We just caught him. Over and over and over again. And Fern rewards us by giving us free hot dogs from Super America
for making the neighborhood just a little safer.
Right? It felt real Encyclopedia Brown, like
by someone who could have absolutely murdered you.
Right. And the thing that we don't talk about until later on is like, oh, if he had a knife and I approached him under the streetlight, he could have stabbed me or literally anything. Or what if he also had like a group of people he was with and then they decide that they're going to be like, we're going to jump this guy who's dressed as a crossing guard. So the cops ask like, well, what amount of damage is it? Because if it's under $200, essentially like we give him a court summons, but then he gets to go free tonight. Mm-hmm. But if it's over 200, we can actually book him and then he would have to stay in jail until Monday.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know. And they're like, do you think it's more than $200? And I said, gosh, I just don't know how much that would be. There's no motor. It's just the glass. And they're like, do you think, wink, wink, it's more than $200? And I said, yes, it's more than $200. They're like, okay. So they book this guy. I never find out what the outcome is, but I get a letter from the mayor of Minneapolis thanking me for making a citizen's arrest. And like, I'm so sorry that this happened to you in our fair city. But I kept that letter for a long time. Where am I getting with this whole situation here? I think that they should allow me to be deputized so that I can constantly have one of those like cop things that they put, like in the Naked Gun series, and I can pull people over.
Yeah.
And maybe I can't ticket them, but I should be able to give them a lecture about bad driving habits and things like that. Or if I see someone littering. So in the case of you and the fire trucks, you could see two fire trucks go by, and then all of a sudden you could see my car go by with a little red light going wee wee.
Citizens Fire Department.
I'd have a loud horn that I could use to go wee 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 wee, just so that people know that I'm coming. Mm-hmm. Do you ever think that? Do you ever think like, I wish right now I was law enforcement so that I could tell this person that they are breaking the law?
No, the only time I ever wanted to be law enforcement was when I was in the 6th grade and there was a cops marathon on Fox for like a month.
Okay. and that was your influence?
I just watched that for a month and I thought, I was trying to find what is the closest thing to a real life superhero. And at that time, my worldview was just black and white. Right. So it's like, who are the bad guys? The people who try to break the law, right, and try to steal and hurt you. And so who stops them? The police do. And that was the only view I knew of. And so to me, that was like, that's the closest thing I could get. But I'm also so incredibly lazy and apathetic that I was, after a month, I was like, I don't want to be that. Right. That went away.
So much running.
Once the marathon marathon ended. I'm surprised I didn't want to become a genie when Nick at Night had the I Dream of Genie marathon.
Well, you'd think you'd want to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
Because that's what astronaut, what's his face?
I still fondly think of the vote Genie or vote Samantha thing they had in Nick.
Which magical woman do you like the most?
And I'm Team Samantha all the way.
Oh yeah, me
Team
too.
Samantha, day and night.
I've got a huge crush on Samantha. I also had a crush on Endora, her mother. I thought was it Agnes?
At some point in time,
Elizabeth Montgomery was Samantha, but what was Agnes Moorehead? Agnes Moorehead. How did I forget that?
I want to make a bet that at some point in our lifetime, someone will use AI to create the Nick at Night universe and start producing new episodes where all these old Nick at Night shows that would have been programmed into Nick at Night, right, are then now melded into one universe, like the Dick Van Dyke Show, things like that.
Speaking of AI, so there was a broadcasters convention this week, and this is the nuttiest, craziest thing that came out of that convention for me. They talked to a news station, a television news station in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, who had essentially someone had taken an actual newscast of theirs. And so it's their actual physical images. And then they had also used an AI voice dubber to this station declaring that Taylor Swift was going to do a free concert at Mount Rushmore. And it went viral, right? It went viral, and it looks like them. It sounds like them. It is almost impossible to tell the difference and then they throw it to the weather guy, and then the weather guy does his piece. It was so well done, right? And probably took the people who are making it 20 minutes with AI tools nowadays, right? Yeah.
We're crossing the threshold. That's for sure.
And so they were getting calls from the State Highway Patrol. They were getting calls. People started showing up to Mount Rushmore being I heard on this station that Taylor Swift is going to be here. And so they had to essentially put out a thing that says, this is not us. Somebody, it's not called hacking anymore, but we're going to need to come up with a term when someone makes an AI version of this and spouts, fake news. And so they said this caused us a huge headache, and people who need to worry about AI are the people who have the most content out there that can be taken. So think about this. So JJ Meets World, we're close to 400 episodes. There is probably 550 hours of content
minimum
available right now.
Yeah.
It takes all of 5 minutes of content to make a perfectly legit and believable AI piece. The more that you can feed it, the better it is, because it'll learn things when JJ gets excited, his inflection goes up.
Right.
And so it'll be able to match that type of thing.
Yeah. It's just got a richer data set, which means it'll be able to be even more precise in its mimicry.
And so it is a sad state of affairs. At some point, they might have JJ Meets Woiled or something like that. Yeah. And someone could make their own. They could, who knows, Tucker? They could make me do commercials for mustard.
Well, I think I'm something of a doomsdayer when it comes to AI, but I also see places to live within it that I can go, well, at least I'll be potentially comfortable the rest of my life if I try to do something like this. I think there will be more of a market for provable authenticity in some way, in some circles, where you can actually show this was the intervention that the artist made to make this thing. This is what they did. And that people will begin to value things that are less edited and less polished, because they'll have a sense that this is actually an authentic thing taken from the world that I'm looking at. But even then, that's still easily replicatable by AI. And so we would need some kind of trusting system that we could use to verify. I don't know how the hell that works. So I said we're crossing the threshold, which we've already crossed a few. Primarily the one that means something to me is that we now, for the rest of our existence, barring an apocalyptic breakdown of society where we just lose the electrical grid and AI just can't even function, is that anytime now we listen to a piece of media, watch a video, look at a photograph, we cannot say for certain that we know that it's real. Like we can maybe ascribe a high probability to it. We do to everything in our lives anyways, but it's truer now than it's ever been.
I was talking to a middle school teacher this week and I said, so tell me what it's like to be in this world with AI. And someone at the school she works at came up with a genius idea. So AI can't help you take a test, right? AI can't help you like in the actual classroom environment yet. What they worry about are like kids writing a book report and they're just doing this. And so she said, like, recently I had a student who she goes like, this guy is not the cream of the crop, right? Like this kid never pays attention in class, does horrible when it comes to like testing and group work. And recently he turned in a book report that started off with the themes and social constructs of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Expound on the, you know, and she goes, she read the first line. She was like, Tony, you did not write this. It's like, yeah, I did. And so the trick that she learned from a fellow teacher is this: pick 4 kids at random and have them come up and read their book report to the class. And if in the first paragraph they come to a word that they can't pronounce or really understand, clearly they didn't write it themselves, right? And she goes, smart. And she's like, AI is here to stay, and it's a great tool, right? And that's the thing, is what she's trying to teach kids nowadays is and we should be teaching people like AI, you know, how to get correct prompts.
There's no avoiding it. Yep.
Right. I mean, we even use it in my industry. I can tell when an ad has been written by a ChatGPT AI bot. But what is amazing is some people just say, write me an ad for a tire store in Fargo, North Dakota. And then they just hand it straight over without at least going through and reading it. And that's the thing, right? That's the human element that we still need to adhere to, is the fact that like, okay, so if I'm going to use this thing to write a book report about Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I should at least read the book report. And so like, oh, if it doesn't sound like me, it doesn't sound like me.
So one of the workarounds that already kind of exists and is going to become more prevalent too is going to be being able to train your own personal ChatGPT to mimic your own writing style. So this kid, say, it's using words he would never use. What he would need to do is at least one time sit down and write any book report on anything, and he'll have to do it once, right? And write that in wording that he understands and get it graded, right? So he knows, okay, this is a B paper, right? Or something. He'll have to work hard one time. Then you feed that into the GPT, and now it's writing in your style, right?
You know, and here's the thing. I think that is perfectly acceptable, to be honest. Like,
I'm not necessarily making a judgment call when I speak it. I'm just saying that's already like the checkmate on that, right?
It's the fact of the matter is that there still is some effort you need to put into it, right? Like, and so if if ChatGPT has written every single one of those for this entire year for you, it's set this idea going forward. And I think that we're going to have to rethink the way that we do testing and like how people understand. How many times were you in a classroom where they're like, what did everyone think about the chapter, where Hilda ate her first salted nut roll? Right. And it's blink, blink. No one wants to come up. Part of that is going to have to be like the group discussion part of it.
Yeah. Well, a potential positive byproduct of this, side effect of this, would be we just end up improving the way we educate kids in the first place. Because I think even just taking ChatGPT out of the picture for a moment, I think you could make a sound argument that having a kid write a book report, is still easily falsifiable even without ChatGPT, and isn't really that viable of a method to ensure that they've learned something, right? And there might be some kids who do, but I didn't consider myself an unintelligent kid, but a book report was not the thing that taught me the content of the book, right? That was merely the teacher's way of trying to verify that I did. Yeah. And so maybe if anything, it just forces the education system to adopt better methods.
So
which are somehow non-falsifiable, which probably has to be group discussion in person.
Right.
We have to make sure no one has earpieces in.
Yeah, right. Be like, say this, Tony.
If, like the AI can hear the teacher ask the question, then it's going to like, hey, say this, say this.
Be like, she hated the salted nut roll because it reminded her of her father.
Yeah, it'll be really smart. Like, do you want to make her cry today? I can tell that she's upset with her husband again.
Be like, she's wearing the same dress she did 2 days ago. She's clearly sleeping at a friend's house. I just recently ran into my 4th grade teacher at an event.
Is that a teacher whose name you would want to say or no?
Oh, I won't say her name because and not that I wouldn't want to say her name. And we had a wonderful chat while we were together. In fact, she's with my elementary school principal who, did you ever have a principal who was like, this person cares so much about this entire building and the students here?
Yeah, that was my principal at Horseman Elementary. That was Principal Stigman.
Right. Okay. So Michelle Van Note was my elementary school principal. And she ushered us, I think, in 4 years straight where we got the blue ribbon, the blue ribbon award, which was like the highest honor you could get for an elementary school in the United States by an educational organization. She worked really hard. She always gave great little speeches and stuff after our invention convention where we all had to invent something.
Oh, that's what you guys, we had a thing called Invent America.
Oh, yeah.
Was that the same thing you guys did? Or I always thought that was more of like a national program, but
ours was in 5th grade, I think.
This was like in almost every grade throughout the year. Yeah.
No, we called it the invention. And it was like a half day where everyone sat and it was training you for going to conferences, where there are vendors, like a vendor mart. Anyway, so, and Mrs. Van Note always brings up, she's like, do you remember the year for Halloween you came dressed as the principal's husband? And I was like, no. And so she's told me the story a few times, but that's what I went as for Halloween is I came and I had a briefcase and I was the principal's husband. And so we took a photo together, I guess. And that was the thing. And she's like, I will always remember that. Anyway, I run into my 4th grade teacher and I've had there's some things that stick in my mind as injustices that I've wanted to solve going forward. For example, my government teacher on September 11th it was 9:45 in the morning, turned off the TV and goes, we all know this, but we have work to do today. And in my government class, everyone else, we were glued to the TV all day long. It was one of the watershed moments of our lives, of this nation's history. And he turned it off. And I remember him bending over to help a teacher or a student, and his giant, big, fat butt was in my face. And I remember thinking, this guy's the worst. And I confronted him about that at one point. And he's like, I don't think that happened. I'm like, it did. In fact, several students and myself ended up walking out of class and going down to the commons where we could watch more of this footage because we knew it was important what was going on. So here's an injustice from 4th grade. You remember the Scholastic Book Fair?
Hell yes.
They were great, right? And
I wish we need to bring that back for us.
For adults. So they did it recently at a brewery. They had they called it an adult book fair.
Okay. All right.
And not books that are sexy.
Yeah.
Not adult books, but books for adults.
Yeah.
And you can't go to one. I was recently asked, I was like, well, could I ever go to the one that's at Lincoln Elementary? And they're like, no, you wouldn't be allowed for that.
But I want to get some Babysitters Club.
Because they also did the book orders once a month too. And you'd get
the best.
Right. And you could get sticker sets
the
and Goosebumps
best.
books.
I was always looking for Garfield and Calvin and Hobbes and Farsight if they ever had
taste.
it. Yep.
Great taste.
Yep.
So one of the things I ordered in 1994 was the novelization of Dennis the Menace because I loved that movie. I loved it. And I bought the novelization. Now, for those of you who might not know, the novelization, almost every movie that came out for a long time had a book that went along with it. The movie isn't based on the book. The book is based on the movie. Yep. And it follows the activities of the movie, but it also fleshes things out. So, for example, I've got the novelization of Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2. And there are ghost fights that are not involved in those movies that you have because you've got, 200 pages of paperback to work with.
Yep.
And things that you find out you find out more of the backstory of Christopher Lloyd's character, Switch Rail Sam.
And it's canon?
It's canon.
Okay.
It's the movie poster on the front of the book. And so I was way into it, right? Because you just get to find out so much more. And there's comedic things, like there's a part where he's washing his dog in Mr. Wilson like is mad about him washing his dog. Like it's a bunch of stuff, right? So I wrote a book report on it, and I was really excited.
Oh, I see where this is going.
she sent back a thing where she goes like incomplete, and then she goes, "Is this really a book?"
Oh, and
so then I had to go get the book.
Yeah, present it to her.
But I had brought the book with me to my grandpa's lake house.
Oh no,
where we were staying for the weekend, and so it wasn't there. And so I said, "Well, I can't get it because it's at my grandpa's lake house." She's like, "I don't think that you really read anything," and so I ended up getting a 0 on it, and I was always so mad, and so I have always wanted to just send her a copy of this and be like, I think you need to retroactively give me this, because I got real into this.
If only you had a giant platform in the area through which you could turn this into something. I had the novelization of Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and I loved that. Mm-hmm. Greg Carlson has a great story about how when the first Batman came out, the novelization came out a week prior, and he ended up ruining the movie for himself because he read the novelization too soon, which I think is that's just poor discipline right there. Yeah. But that was 1989. In Gremlins 2, the new batch, there's a scene in the movie itself where the film breaks. Like it's Christopher Lee talking about how he's going to destroy the gremlins, and then the film breaks. And in the movie theater, it looked like there were a bunch of gremlins up in the projection booth, and like they play other things, and a movie theater usher goes down into like the theater that you're supposed to be at and grabs Hulk Hogan, and Hulk goes, "All right, you gremlins, you put Gremlins 2 back on right now, or you're going to get the Hulkster." And he rips his shirt open, and then they start playing, and it skips ahead in the actual movie. And then when they released it on VHS, it was a thing where it was more for like the television audience, but the screen breaks and it's the Gremlins, and they start playing clips from old movies. So like there's a John Wayne movie where they've imposed themselves. So it's John Wayne. He's like cattle rustlers, and it cuts to them and they're branding a cattle with like the Gremlins logo. And so they flip through all of these different like types of television shows. In the novelization, the idea is that they have murdered the novelist, and now they are taking over. And so like in the middle of a sentence, it goes like, and then like it looks like a weird typewriter thing, and then it's blank, 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 almost like for 2 pages. And all of a sudden it's like, Gremlins are great. Gremlins great. Gremlins great. And I remember thinking, this guy understood the assignment. Totally.
This is really good stuff.
I had a thought while you were just talking about that.
Uh-huh.
What we should do.
A novelization of JJ Meets World?
I'm getting there, yeah.
Okay.
We should take the last like 150 episodes and feed that into an AI and have it make us a single episode of JJ Meets World based off of the last 150, and then have an AI make a novelization of that episode and sell it as a companion piece. And then we open with actually us and say, listen, this is us, but this is our content. So we're making a special episode written by AI, but completely sampled from like our last 150 episodes. And this is what AI would think currently an episode of JJ Meets World sounds like, and then this is the novelization of that episode.
Do we have the technology to do that?
Once we get off the microphones here, JJ, I'm going to dive into that world and see if that's possible for us.
Do you know what the real risk here is? What if it's really good?
Oh my God, dude! Then
it's really good.
Then we may have our format going forward.
And there's no oops, I spilled a coffee. No one's coughing. Nobody is saying like, hold on one second.
Or it adds those things in.
Or the audio is pristine. There's no time when people back away too far from the microphone. Oh,
I wonder like how many. At times, like AI me will be talking about soft foods.
Yeah.
You know,
right? Or like given last episode, like how much turtle talk there will be. Right.
It's like, yeah, most of the data is Tucker talking about VHS tape.
What'll be interesting is like, as it's categorizing, it's like JJ tells a story from his past that may or may not be true.
I wonder too.
Tucker's disinterest in subject.
I mean, if it'll even try to synthesize a new song or not
Like an opening
at the beginning. All right. Well, we have a mission in place. You know what? I'm going to see if we can make that be episode 400.
Okay.
We're going to try
I like that.
400's coming up. I think this is 390 that we're recording right now.
Holy moly.
If I believe so. We're 10 episodes away. That's 10 weeks away. So we're going to try. We'll report in if that's going to happen or not. But the idea is we want to make episode 400 fucking nuts.
Oh boy.
And so you and I will have to sit down and pick the data set, because I think we shouldn't be picking ones where we're talking about this, doing it right.
Good call.
It should be everything from before it. So it's not sullied by this. And then or maybe we just bring in all of the episodes. So even all the guest interviews are in there, and just go, what does it do? Like, does it create a guest for us to talk to at one point? That'd be pretty wild, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll find out what we can do.
If it asks you like who the guest should be, can you please say Tom Hanks? That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. It turns out that balloons that are filled with helium do not make a good carry-on luggage.